Bugatti has now unveiled the Chiron successor, and this next generation hypercar is essentially art on wheels. This car is designed to be focused on the look and feel of the experience, and just so happens that it goes very fast in the process. So let's take a look at some of the specs and of course the cost to own of the new Bugatti Tourbillon. The Tourbillon does have a hybrid powertrain, and it goes 0 to 60 in just under 2 seconds. It also goes 0 to 250 miles per hour in 25 seconds. This car also has a 1,000 horsepower naturally aspirated V16 engine, and then with the electric system it also provides another 800 horsepower, giving you a total 1,800 horsepower system. It also has 9,000 RPM and has a top speed of 277 miles per hour. And on the interior, Bugatti has partnered with a Swiss watch company to create the digital gauge cluster. And one of the big features that everybody seems very excited about is the steering wheel and the way that they've set it up. They have it to where the steering wheel itself actually rotates around the center hub, and that digital gauge cluster basically stays in the same spot while the steering wheel pivots around that center. But another thing that I think personally is very cool is the way that they did the crystal glass throughout the center console for all of the buttons and things like that, so it gives it that transparent look. I think that's a very nice touch, something very different that you don't see in typical cars. Something that I think gives it a very nice touch of luxury to really nail in what they were going for in terms of the whole look and feel of the Tourbillon itself. But let me know in the comments below what you think so far is the most interesting part of the Tourbillon. I'm very interested to see what everyone's opinion is on this car and what everyone thinks about the overall look of it so far. So let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, also check out feelingprettygood.com. I'll tag them in the description down below. It's an automotive lifestyle brand. They offer really cool products and apparel. If you use my code HAVEN at checkout, you'll get 10% off your entire order. And like I said, I'll put that down in the description below if you want to check them out. But let's take a look at some of the potential numbers and cost breakdown for this Tourbillon. And yes, as my quick disclaimer, I do understand that the average person that would be purchasing this vehicle is most likely not going to finance it, or at least not finance as large of a portion as I typically use in my videos. I do understand that the typical customer for a Bugatti is probably going to either buy it outright or put a very large down payment, or at the very least not get the terms that I typically use in my videos. But for the sake of the breakdown, I am going to still use my typical numbers just to give you a full look at what it would actually look like if someone in that situation was to use these terms or something very similar, to at least give you a ballpark of what it would look like to actually physically own this Bugatti Tourbillon and see what the price breakdown would actually be in a normal everyday type of situation, and not just if you were to buy it outright. Now, like I said before, we do know that the starting price is going to be $4,600,000, and say you were to put an 8% sales tax on that, then that would be $368,000 in sales tax that would be added on as well, which would then bring the total price to $4,968,000 for the Bugatti Tourbillon. Now, let's say you were to put a 10% down payment on this Bugatti Tourbillon, then that would be $496,800 that you'd be putting down. So hypothetically speaking, let's say that you got approved for 72-month financing, which is a total of 6 years, at a 7% APR, then your monthly payments would be about $76,229.52 a month for this Bugatti Tourbillon. And in those 6 years, you would pay a total of $1,017,325.28 in interest. But of course, as with any vehicle, that is not everything that goes into the cost of actually owning and maintaining this car, so we do have to factor in some other major expenses as well in order to be able to see an effective cost breakdown. Things like car insurance, which for cars like Bugatti, the annual premium typically falls between 1% and 2% of the overall value of the vehicle itself, which means that if I went right there in the middle at 1.5% of the overall value, then you'd be looking at about $69,000 a year, which is about $5,750 a month for your average car insurance cost. But of course, there is going to be some fluctuation to that, just like with any other vehicle, and it's going to vary depending on your age, the state that you live in, your driving history, and a few other factors as well. So of course, still keep in mind that those numbers can still change to some extent, depending on your personal circumstances. Now, in terms of gas, and like I said before, I do understand that these are not always going to be the same situation for every person buying this vehicle, and I know that this typically would not be a daily driver type of car, but if you were to somehow drive it as a daily driver and you drove an average of 1,200 miles a month or about 15,000 miles a year, plus the average current cost of premium gas today, then you'd be looking at least $510.96 a month for your average gas cost. But of course, that's very much going to change because, like I said, I do understand this isn't typically a daily driver kind of car, but it just kind of to put it in perspective of how much it costs. And of course, if you do push this vehicle more on its speed, then it's obviously going to go through gas a bit faster. So this is really just to kind of get an idea. If you were to use it as a daily driver in a regular kind of circumstance, even though that's not likely, it's just to kind of get an idea of those numbers. Now, in terms of maintenance costs, you'd be looking at about $25,000 a year, which is about $2,083.34 a month for your average maintenance cost. Now, if you were to add all of these monthly expenses together, then you'd be looking at about $84,573.82 a month on average for this Bugatti Tourbillon. And let's say you wanted to keep that at a comfortable 15% of your average income, then that means that you would need to be making about $6,765,905.60 annually in order to keep it in that comfortable 15% range of your average annual income. But just to put that in perspective for you, if you paid those same monthly expenses every single month for the entire 72 months of the financing terms, plus that original 10% down payment, then that means that you would pay a total of $6,586,115.04 over those 6 years for the Bugatti Tourbillon. Now, like I said, these numbers are estimated and they are very much just an average to kind of give you an idea. They would fluctuate a bunch depending on how you use the vehicle, how often you use it, what limits you push it to, and of course your personal circumstances in terms of where you live, what age you are, your driving history, and just a bunch of factors that would very much fluctuate the difference of this vehicle's cost. But this is just to kind of give you an idea of where it would land in a general spectrum based off of average numbers and average usage and average cost. So just make sure that you are aware of the fluctuation. And of course, you see a lot of design elements that Bugatti always typically goes to that are very signature to Bugatti as a whole. Things like the Bugatti arch in the grille and the split imagery that you see going through the middle, as well as even the two-tone colors and just the overall aspect. Another cool thing about the Tourbillon is the fact that the doors do go up on this one. I think it adds a very nice touch to the luxury side. I think it's very fitting for this vehicle. But overall, I think it's a very beautiful car. I actually really like it a lot. I like the way that they did the interior and the whole analog look, as well as the steering wheel and the crystal glass buttons. Just small features that I think very much give it the image that they were going for, and I think they did a very good job. But let me know in the comments below what you think. If you think it's a good successor to the Chiron, and if you think it's going to stand up to the test of time, let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next.